we develop systems to monitor and report good and accurate data and hold district leaders accountable for the accuracy of that data. One way to do this could be through a research partnership. I did hear your concerns about that. You may want to look at Chicago. They've been implementing that through the University of Chicago Consortium Research. They've coupled that with decentralizing the system. So I think it'll get at your concern about the data not coming from the community and having community involvement. So I encourage you to talk to Dr. Janice Jackson, who's the superintendent there. I would also think about implementing an early warning and support system to better identify earlier where kids are not meeting key benchmarks. I would expand your CTE offerings to all schools in the city so that kids have that option. And then I'd also invest in systems to look at wraparound supports. And the reports I brought have some examples of ones that meet the evidence level that is required by the Every Student Succeeds Act. And BAR is one of those programs that I recommend in particular. I'd also recommend doing a root cause analysis of chronic absenteeism, and I've laid out in the copy of my testimony some research questions you can ask. And then finally, I think regarding this chronic absenteeism, there are some really low-cost and scalable structures you can put in place, like texting parents and sending postcards to remind them of key dates. So there is a path forward. It's not a lost cause, and I would encourage you to read the testimony I brought to see more specific recommendations for how you can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will put it also online for the city, so we put all the testimony so the public can review it. And I've asked my staff to reach out to you to sit down and walk through each of these as well. If you have time to do that, that would be great. Not 7%, but Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon, Chairman Rosso, and hopefully Education Committee watch this video. No, I'm sure they are. I'm testifying today in my capacity as a former DCPS teacher and currently as the Executive Director of Empower K-12, which is an educational data nonprofit that supports schools with data and analytics. The DC education landscape has really dramatically changed since I first came to DC as a 7th grade math teacher at Hine Junior High back in 2002. There's been a lot of positive outcomes since the Public Education Reform Amendment Act has been instituted. And that's both from the public charter schools and the Public Charter School Board, great leadership from Scott Naomi, and from our chancellors, Michelle Reed and Kai Henderson. I'll beat the sort of Nate drum just a little bit more. I know that we've heard a couple statistics, but since prior to PARA, when in 2003, before we even had really gotten into the reform world, our NAEP scores here have grown 21 points, which is 16 more points than the national trend, which is 5 points. Our economically disadvantaged students have grown 17 points. Nationwide, similar students have only grown 7 points. In 2003, DCPS was the lowest performing urban district. And in 2017, DCPS's 4th graders are performing above the urban district average. Our 8th graders at DCPS are performing slightly below the urban average, but they have still improved 14 points since 2003, and have closed that gap with other districts by 4 points. I believe, and from my perspective, from Empower K-12's perspective, that robust data-driven decision-making has had a tremendous impact and improved our student achievement and growth throughout DCPS and the public charter schools. School leaders have moved from relying on their gut to using data to make instructional and personnel decisions, to use multiple sources of data to influence those decisions. For example, all LEAs, including charter schools and DCPS through Impact, use teacher evaluation systems that both include observational and student outcome data. Rigorous economic research has shown that these kinds of models work and increase student learning. And finally, our citywide investments in technology and data infrastructure are starting to pay off. However, as Mr. Osborne mentioned, there are still persistent economic achievement gap, and we believe that it requires a doubling down on the investments that we've made in data collection and analytics and making data-driven decisions. Teachers, principals, and education leaders must remain vigilant in their use of that data and to drive policy and practice decisions. In a recent survey of LEA data use, Empower K-12 found that schools are averaging a score of 2.8 out of 5 on our elements of data-driven best practice via our diagnostic rubric for data-driven culture. That does mean that schools are way more focused on data today than they were 10 years ago when I started as a teacher. Yet we still need access to more timely data. My colleague over here mentioned about using data to affect interventions, more timely access data that can identify students who need interventions, and then also track information about the interventions that are given to them, so that we can then find out, well, which interventions are working, not just in one of our schools, but all of our schools. We believe that we should maintain a focus on looking at statistically significant impacts, not just are things slightly better than normal, but let's find things that are actually moving the needle for our students and focusing on replicating those. Going forward, I ask the council not to turn back the clock on education reform, but instead invest more and by moving forward in the capacity for data-driven decision-making. We should give LEAs the resources they need and hold them accountable for identifying students academically off track and intervening with them. We must partner with independent researchers to analyze the efficacy of academic attendance and behavioral interventions. And finally, we must develop a more robust longitudinal data warehouse that facilitates collaboration and analysis across LEAs and research organizations. I commit to partner with the city's educational leaders to advance these priorities, and I hope and ask for your support today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mr. Whedon, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate your engagement. These issues are important in the district.
Good evening, Chairperson Gasso, members of the Committee on Education. My name is Raymond Lena. I'm a Ward 7 resident, DCPS, and charter parent. My son first enrolled at Tyler Elementary School, also my first year as a principal at another school. The education landscape was murky. School lotteries were a mess, books and supplies were hidden, laborers were pitted against one another, and the environment of many buildings were unsafe. The recruitment and retention of teachers and leaders were close to impossible. The impact of what folks call reform is clear. When I look back at both Alex's and Davis's learning and what they have gained over the last 15 years, both attended preschools due to a united understanding of what is essential for kids. Both have access to schools which is best for them. Their principals at Tyler, Mr. Day, Ms. Prentice, Mr. Brunson, and before my time as Pierre Fareed, led schools to increase achievement and enrollments. My son's and daughter's school leaders and teachers designed a plan to support their growth and development. The school, like other facets of our city, is a work in progress, but the people there were and are committed to making today better than yesterday. While I'm sure it's not the intent, the name of this forum is unusual. The future of school reform in the District of Columbia. I am not an English teacher, but I read this as schools are not doing enough. While not the intent, I wonder how families and teachers, school leaders who I know wake up each morning with the goal of giving their best selves to our community feel about folks not at ground level planning their future. Before we create new systems, we should act on the many recommendations like the DC Education Adequacy Study, the volume of feedback shared during roundtables of the last Chancellor search, or just stand at the doors during arrival of any public school to hear what families want. These actions would enable schools designed to serve awards 5, 7, and 8 to continue to make the smart investments for their student success rather than supplanting the funds to pay for essentials. We could leverage well-thought-out policies to radically shift the resource structures of our cities to match the resources to schools with the most significant needs proportionally. Before we pile into the list of what schools and school systems are not doing well, let's pause and look through the lens of what has worked, dissect these initiatives, and replicate. Let's acknowledge and rectify the decades of neglect which has been fostered in our neighborhoods. My neighbors, friends, families that I serve have pleaded with this in every version of council, mayor, and other positions of power to remove the silos of work as one. Before we create another agency reporting structure, another overseer for schools due to the unfortunate decisions of a few, let's see if we can narrow the scope of what's important to us. Working with other leaders to improve public education, enhancing our schools so every child has access to an excellent education, and ensuring our graduates have the knowledge, skills, and attitudes for success at college, trade schools, and careers of their choice. The improvements over time have helped not just my children, but all students in the city. The future of school reform is contingent on our aligned next steps. if we shift our mindsets to become biased towards action and move towards putting significant sweat equity to execute with fidelity current systems of accountability and school improvement while supporting the initiatives for plans yet to come, remarkable things will come. If not, we'll be back here in a year or two wondering what happened.
Thank you very much. Mr. Parker?
Good evening, Chairman Grasso, members of the Education Committee, and broader community of educators and stakeholders. My name is Zachary Parker, and I serve as Senior Director of School Support with the Achievement Network, as well as I'm a 2018 candidate for the DC State Board of Education for Ward 5. I'm here today to speak to my work with schools throughout the district and highlight what has been working in our public schools. Education reform in the district is improving learning for all of our students. NAEP comparisons of student performance across urban districts show that DC schools have made continuous improvements over the last 9 years. Since 2009, DCPS students have grown by 10 points in 4th grade reading and 11 points in 4th grade math. Over that same period, DCPS 8th graders have grown by 6 points in reading and 11 points in math. Also significant, DCPS has shown steady growth for students who qualify for free and reduced price lunch, growing 8 points in 4th grade reading, 9 points in 4th grade math, and 4 points in 8th grade math. Student performance on the PARCC summative assessment tells a similar story. DCPS has seen steady gains on the PARCC assessment in both math and ELA in past years, with schools making record gains this past year, 6.4 percentage points in ELA and 3.5 percentage points in math. Additionally, with PARCC's 5-level scoring system, where 5 is the highest and 1 is the lowest, the percentage of students scoring at a level of 1 or 2 decreased significantly in ELA, down 6.6 percentage points, and math down 4.4 percentage points. Likewise, economically disadvantaged students made some of the largest improvements, up 9.2 in ELA and 6.6 percentage points in math. In short, while progress has not been linear, education reform in the district is working. I have the unique opportunity to work alongside school leadership teams throughout the city, coaching and supporting them to triangulate learning standards, performance data, and curriculum to improve instruction and accelerate student learning. I work with a variety of schools from elementary to high school, from charter to traditional public, which has allowed me to see firsthand how hard our school communities are working to provide students a quality education while addressing real and often significant learning needs and content gaps. Having had the opportunity to teach 7th grade math in New Orleans, Louisiana, pre-Katrina, post-Katrina, pre-Common Core, and seeing the disparity between what I was tasked with teaching my students, which at the time centered on multiplication facts and operations, versus a student who would have been born in Boston, for example, I see the Common Core as a tool of equity. Common Core, in essence, sets a high bar for what all students are expected to learn in any given grade, whether in New Orleans, Boston, or Washington, D.C. DC schools have navigated the Common Core transition to full implementation, where much of our schools' team's focus now is on quality of execution by way of curricula internalization, training structures, and data analysis. DCPS has made large investments in quality curriculum, which will surely support further positive outcomes for students. I have seen firsthand how the district's adoption of the Eureka math curriculum, for example, which is among the highest rated curriculums published to date, has resulted in more conceptual instruction, greater coherence, and improved rigor in teacher lessons. Sustained school improvement, though, results from both adaptive and technical change. The adaptive change that is still needed across schools is deep study of learning standards that will only come through improved and more targeted training for our leaders and teachers. What is more, as was previously discussed, we need to review leader and teacher evaluation processes, examining the importance that we place on content, knowledge, and then ensure our school communities are supported. DCPS's LEAP structures have significantly increased the amount of time teachers spend on content and pedagogical development. Still, though, many of our leaders and teachers report that they do not feel adequately supported. While DCPS's LEAP structures is much needed and a welcome step in the right direction for training and development, we must redefine, revalue, and reinvent how we go about actually training our teachers, individualizing content and training as much as possible. What is more, we must also provide space for teachers and leaders to examine their biases and explore how those beliefs about our students inform how they approach learning and teaching for our students. DCPS's use of quality formative assessments in ELA, for example, has drastically increased the amount of actionable data at school leaders and teachers' fingertips. Students are writing more and better, teachers are studying student misconceptions from quality items, and some schools are regularly implementing short reteach cycles to push for content and constant improvement. That said, it remains true that many of our schools are data rich, yet not data driven. School leaders and principal managers need to align on the most important formative and summative growth metrics that will drive toward change to support school teams in using data to inform instruction across classrooms. It is no secret that recent developments of fraudulent grade truancy and suspension rate changes have cast a shadow over DCPS schools and the hard work our leaders and teachers do every day to improve learning for our students. Still though, education reform in Washington, D.C. is working. We must not turn back now, but instead continue improving in areas where we have started to see success. Thank you, Chairman Grasso and members of the Education Committee.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony and taking the time to be here today. Thank you all very much. This is an interesting panel too, and I love it because it helps push our agenda and helps move us in a new place. And I have to just point out a few things that I think it goes back to Mr. Whedon's testimony a little bit. And for me, the most frustrating point for me about all these debates and all these discussions around education in the District of Columbia is the lack of connection to what's already happening, the lack of understanding of what's already going on in our city on a daily basis. And I think that disconnect is because it's hard to do what Mr. Whedon wants us to do, which is important to still do it, which is engage on the ground, to talk directly to parents and teachers and students. And as much as I go out and do town halls and I try to get out into the community, I can never do it enough to really know. And I am the one in charge of this on the city council. So you can imagine why I get very, very nervous about saying that we should give that level of responsibility to some other entity in the District of Columbia, similar to the Chicago Consortium. And it was never demonstrated as clearly to me as last week when I had some folks come in my office to pitch this idea to me and to try to convince me that it was a good idea to start some independent consortium to hold us accountable. This group was all white. This group was average age 60. And this group had not read my legislative report on discipline. They had not looked at the work that this committee has done on oversight. They had not looked at the implementation that we had done on the para report. And let me be very clear, with the para report, which is now 3 years ago, when it came out, I went on tour with that. I went to every ward, I listened to the public, and what the public told me was, we want to remove the achievement gap, we want better data, we want to understand the data better. What they did not ever say to me, what we would like is some outside entity to come and tell us what to do, ever. Not in Ward 3 and not in Ward 7 or 8. Now, that said, I do want to just go through a list of what we did do, which I did in my opening, but I'm going to say it again. We invested $11 million at OSSE to build out their longitudinal data warehouse. $11 million, which they're doing right now. It's not an easy task, it's something that they're doing, it's something that we'll hold them to get it done and get it done right, because we believe that quality data is at the core of some of these issues. I think Ms. Jimenez said it's not policy, it's implementation. I think this is key. I mean, it's not. It's about how do we go on the ground and support students and teachers to do their jobs well, and administrators. Now, the other thing that we've done is we've tried to support OSSE in their rollout of accountability over and over again. We've also tried to support the Public Charter School Board with accountability. They have the PMF system that has done some remarkable accountability thing. OSSE is now rolling out the New STAR framework, which everybody is nervous about and we're engaging in a conversation on. But you want to talk about accountability, those are school-based report cards. And that is going to be, a challenge because we're going to have to make sure the data is accurate and that it's reviewed and that it's understood. But once it's done, you're going to see cross-sector, accountability that you've never seen before in the District of Columbia. And hopefully that's for the better. I think finally I'll just note this. I couldn't agree more about the point that you raised about early warning, intervention, and monitoring system. I think good schools do that well, really well. And the money that I put in every single year for early literacy supports in the District of Columbia, both the Reading Partners and Literacy Lab, that's why they're successful. is because what they do, grades pre-K 3 all the way up to 3rd grade, is they monitor the progress of a student's literacy skills every single day. For 30 minutes, they monitor how that child's doing, they write it down, they tell her how she can improve, and they work with her. And then they get her to the point where she's capable of doing it on her own, and she's engaging, and she's reading to learn, and then they move on to another student, and they do that. Now, there's nothing that replaces that in daily understanding of where a student is. The question is, can we get enough resources in the hands of our teachers, in the hands of our schools to do that across the board? I think we can. I think it's hard, but I think we can, and I think this city's committed to doing that. Thoughts?
The only thing I would add to that is the BAR program that I told you about, that's their model. It's daily, every single child or community within the school discussing that child's progress, and they've done it in a fairly cheap way. So I would.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, I would love to learn more about it. I think that's really important. Anybody else want to add?
Yes, and I do, in terms of the investment that the council has made in the SLED, the Longitudinal Education Database from OSSE, has been great. But again, that's sort of at the compliance level, the things that we must collect that they are collecting. But what I meant was by doubling down is that we need more investment to do the things that, like you were talking about, is like finding the interventions. Schools don't have student information systems, like they have to customize to be able to collect the information about the interventions.
Wait, let me just say something on that.
Yep.
It's really important to note this. OSSE created a school information system that is available to every school in the District of Columbia, and only 12 LEAs can take advantage of it. And they can take advantage of it, and then if we actually coordinate that and have all LEAs use the same student information system, then I think we would be doing a better job, don't you?
Well, my pushback on
Yeah, that's
it's quite possible that that's a great idea. My pushback on that is that they've already invested themselves hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in their own student information system to collect the stuff that they are already collecting, which the eSchool Plus does not. And the eSchool Plus does not also have a model to create and track intervention-specific data. Some of their student information systems do, some of them don't. Either way, like if we invested potentially, and I'm not saying that this is a finite, but if we invested in eSchool Plus to have an intervention system module, that maybe that they can continue to using their PowerSchool or their Rediker, but would use eSchool Plus to track intervention-specific data. So that's what I meant by like doubling down and getting a group of people together to look at that kind of stuff, to come forth with you to some recommendations, because I think you're right that there's great possibilities out there with the stuff that we've already started, and I just think that we need to double down to find
I agree
even
with you
more
100%
solutions.
on that. I would love to, I think we could talk about this all night. I think it's important that we do. I also think that I'm not opposed to evaluation. I'm not opposed to, I actually support it. I just don't think you need the council and the mayor to write a law that says we're going to do it. And I actually think this year, the investment of $500,000 was an important investment. What we should be doing is taking that money and putting it into these schools and giving these schools a chance to improve. Not that we don't already invest a lot in the schools. We do invest a lot of money in the schools. It's just, I'm just saying, look, don't put another burden on all these schools to have to comply with some other entity when they already have to comply with the fact of the matter with OSSE. They have to comply with the Public Charter School Board or the DCPS central office or the council or the mayor, whoever. Just give them some space to actually do their work, and maybe you'll see some turning around on some of these important issues. Did you want to add anything, Mr. Wood? I know.
No, I mean, I would say that the space is one of the things that I've been, so one of the biggest honors was being on Josh's Empower K-12 award winner. I guess that was in my last year as a principal, like showing that we were closing the achievement gap when I was a principal at Benny Elementary. And it was because we were allowed to do what folks talked about before, like we would double the math, or we would move some things around in order for a kid to close the gap with the intent of making sure, like, this takes 2 to 3 years. It's going to take 2 to 3 years, but I'm going to guarantee you, Mom, that in the 4th year, we're going to also be able to supplement them with some of the other things that you find outside. But we can't really start talking about some of the creative and fun things, quote unquote, the flashy things that are around the city, if they're not reading to learn right now. And so the more and more that we could allow DCPS schools or DCPS parents to have that type of innovation, and you see that innovation, and not surprisingly, those schools are doing great things, the better. I mean, it's just one of those things that if we can just give a little bit more space to allow principals and teachers and families to read, I have to believe great things are going to happen.
Thank you. That's very important. Thank you all very much.
I could continue to talk about data all night long.
But this conversation is not over, and I hope you guys get your respective communities and everybody to come out to the board meetings. You know, we're gonna do this all summer. I know, you know, summer's time, people are on vacation and stuff like that, but this committee is gonna continue to work on this. And, you know, I really think it's important if you also speak up about where the investments should be and, you know, challenge people to go out there and greet parents, you know, because, you know, when you go to the Benning campus or you go to some other schools, and, you know, I was at Houston Elementary the other day, and, you know, we did just a teacher appreciation day, but what blew me away was the number of parents that were coming in and engaging with the teachers and the students that were engaging in. You could just feel that there's change happening there, but if you look at the numbers, I don't care if you just look at names, if you look at also the park numbers, you would say, God, Houston, man, we really need to turn you around. Well, the fact is, on the ground there, because of the investments that DCPS has made over the past 10 years, and the city has made meaningfully investing, you can see some real benefit there, and there's been some changes, and I think it's going to show up in the grades, but at the right time, not right away. And I think what they're doing around social emotional learning there, I won't go on, I talk about it all the time, but what they're doing there for those elementary kids is rock solid. I mean, it's amazing. It's so cool, and all it is just caring enough to ask a child, what's up? You know, what's going on in your life? Are you okay? Can we help you? What has happened to you? And most of these kids have adverse experiences that they need to actually work through every day. It's not just like, oh, you're better, therefore move on. It's literally every morning. And so I couldn't do it this time, but I want to go back because they wanted me to come and see them doing Mindspace in the elementary school classes. Every single classroom at Houston does it for 10 minutes every morning, where they meditate together and learn how to control emotion and learn how to breathe and engage in their daily routine. That's cool stuff. All of us adults should do that, not just the little ones.
Yep, and just one more thing, just another idea about data-driven policy that potentially could be something that you come across and could work on. We did a preliminary analysis. I know you know that out-of-school time funding has been on the table. We did a preliminary analysis just one out-of-school time DC scores. And we looked at the impact of DC scores on student MGP, median growth percentile. Has a statistically significant impact on school level median growth percentile. I mean, it's a moderate impact, and it's actually slightly larger than even the changing of suspension rate data and impacts. So, like, I feel like if the council's looking for, even from the educational perspective, data-driven policy decision-making, like looking at things like that, but for right now, even investing in out-of-school time for like quality out-of-school time partnerships like DC Scores has a statistically significant impact on student outcomes.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think it goes really well, and not only do they have good outcomes because they invest in the whole child, not just the physical side, but also the intellectual poetry. They also get kids to show up.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be in their after school program if you're not in school all day.
Yep.
And it's really important because kids love to play soccer, and that's a motivator for kids to be there, which helps teachers, helps school, everybody. We're putting $20 million in out-of-school time this year. And let me tell you, that is a huge investment. That is, just 2 years ago, it was $6 million, okay? And we're doing this, why? Because we've created a new commission on out-of-school time. We put it under the Committee on Education, and now we have an out-of-school time office that has a lead in the Deputy Mayor's office. This was all part of this. This is what I'm saying. I just wish people would everyone would just take a breath and go, holy moly, the city's actually doing stuff. You know, we're not just sitting back and watching these things happen. The press gets bombastic about it, puts headlines out there, and everybody jumps up with a solution. Well, maybe everyone needs to just take a deep breath when the press does that and say, hey, let me look under the covers here. Let me see what's really going on. What's going on in our schools? It's not perfect. It is by far not perfect, but it is changing, and it is getting better really fast.
And we appreciate your evaluation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, the next panel is made up of Raul Echevarria, co-founder and president of Community Kids Preschool, LLC. Carol Barber, I Choose to Find LLC. Is Barber here? Brian Turnmail. Mr. Turnmail, are you in the room? Michael Lee, Michael Augustus Lee.
I get 5 minutes and nobody see it?
No, Mr. Lee, you get 3 minutes and some more people are on the list. Rebecca Wolf, Emmett's Bowen Elementary School. Ms. Wolf, let's see her come in. Caitlin Pennington, Senior Policy Analyst of Bellwether Education Partners. Rachel Bergseiker, Human Rights Learning Associate, American Friends Service Committee, DC. Robin Shaped. Robin Shaped?
Yes.
Come on up. See, I told you it'd be a full panel, Mr. Lee. I told you it'd be a full panel. You got 3 minutes, brother. And thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilmember David Grosso. 30% not graduating. I think you said 19,000 not graduating.
No, 1,900.
30% not graduating, 1,900 not graduating. Accountability, where at? This is pitiful and pathetic. Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, Deputy Mayor, I'm seeing this for those who have not graduated in the last 20 years. I'm saying this for those who have not graduated in the last 20 years. Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, and the Deputy Mayor for Education. For those who have not graduated in the last 20 years, we report on law, the report on health, the report on teaching, the report on education. This is pitiful and pathetic. The report on law, the report on health, the report on teaching, the report on education. This is pitiful and pathetic. Now, what I've learned from coming down, and I said this back, we have the front office, we have the central office, we have executives, we have administrators, we have principals, teachers, and teaching assistants. We have the NAACP. Now, NAACP, and we have the Washington Teachers Union. So now, we have front office, a central office, we have executives, administrators, principals, teachers, teaching assistants, NAACP, Washington Teachers Union, and it's like, leave no child behind. When I was in the shelter, NAACP, Washington Teachers Union, and Office of State Supervisor of Education, then I say, God, Lord, Jesus Christ, Spirit of God, the Holy Ghost. God, Lord, Jesus Christ, the Spirit of God, the Holy Ghost. Zion, Zion, the Sabbath is coming. Sabbath number 20. Most Americans can count to 20. Zion, Zion, the Sabbath is coming. Sabbath number 20. Praying to God in Jesus that no one will lose their life on the 20th Sabbath of the year, especially young people under 30. All across America in 50 states. Law school reform, medical school reform, education reform, government reform. I said that back in 2015. Law school reform, medical school reform, education reform, government reform. Too much office crime, a broken communication system, too many technical deficiencies, there's too much corruption. Exploiting these young people, misleading these young people, misguiding these young people, misdirecting these young people, riding the backs of these young people. Word of God education, word of God supremacy. Teach them about God. Teach them about Jesus. Best students in America, best teachers in America, best schools in America, the highest performing schools, making sure everyone graduates, to graduate on time, all the 12th graders, no one left behind. What I'm saying, don't be like me. Don't end up poor, down the bottom. I'm speaking from experience. Thank you, King David.
Thank you very much. That's nice. Good,
That's me. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're next on my list. That's good on the list. Just
Great.
turn on your microphone, let it roll.
Okay, great. I don't know how.
There you go. Push the button in the middle. There you go. It's
Sorry,
on.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Good evening, Chairman Grasso and members of the Education Committee. My name is Kate Pennington. I'm a senior analyst at Bellwether Education Partners, a national education nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. My work focuses on human capital issues in education, specifically around teacher and principal effectiveness. As part of my work, I studied D.C. Public Schools teacher evaluation system impact, and just last week I released a report about teacher retention in DCPS. I'm here today to discuss the student achievement in DCPS in the last 10 years, and also to share the findings of my recent report, which highlights successes of impact and teacher retention in the district. Seems like you've heard a lot about NAEP, and you know a lot about NAEP. I have some stuff about NAEP in my testimony here, but the short of it is that DCPS students are on an upward trajectory and have been. So between 2007 and 17, fourth grade reading scores in the district improved by 16 points, a faster trajectory than all of the other large cities, and much faster than the national average. You can go on and on about NAEP. DC's doing well. So while NAEP data show that DCPS is improving, there's no doubt that the district still has room to improve. This is particularly true in closing gaps between low-income students and their more affluent peers. By stalling or reversing reforms in the district, might slow this progress that DCPS is making and hurt the ability for the district to make inroads in some of these more specific and deeper issues. DCPS's teacher evaluation system impact is a perfect example of a reform that should not be reversed. Unlike many teacher evaluation systems in districts throughout the country, impact creates substantial differentiation in ratings between teachers. This helps the district offer differential incentives and support systems to teachers based on performance. This has led to differential retention in the district. Teachers will leave the profession. There's just no real way around that, but in DC it turns out that when teachers leave, they are often lower performing. And the district replaces those teachers with teachers who increase student achievement at higher rates. Critics of impact often state that this system pushes teachers out of the district, but my work analyzing the reasons why teachers leave DCPS shows otherwise. In my recent report on teacher retention in DCPS, we analyzed the district's teacher exit survey data. Teachers leaving the district can select up to 3 options for why they left and what would have retained them. We found that for most teachers, impact was not a primary factor causing teachers to leave. And those who did name impact as a driver tended to be lower performing. 25% of minimally effective teachers, 21% of developing teachers, 9% of effective, and just 1% of highly effective teachers named impact as the #1 factor causing them to leave DCPS. DCPS retains 92% of its effective and highly effective teachers, which is incredibly remarkable. In our report, we were curious about why the remaining 8% leave and what the district could have done to retain them. We found that solutions to work-life balance problems and school leadership support could have made the difference. Our analysis shows that effective and highly effective teachers who left DCPS due to leadership would have liked more recognition, and those who left for work-life balance wanted more schedule flexibility. To high performers, schedule flexibility mostly meant part-time and leave options to spend time with their family. As you know, research shows that teachers matter more to student achievement than any other in-school factor. Luckily, DCPS has a great system for identifying and retaining its best teachers. Dismantling those systems will not accelerate the district's progress. Instead, the next DCPS chancellor, the mayor, and the city council should focus its teacher-centered efforts on what the district's high-performing teachers say they want and need. Strategies for this include giving experienced teachers more options for extended leave and part-time employment, and addressing how school leaders show encouragement and recognition to high-performing teachers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your work. Yes. First, thank you for your back.
Chairman Grosso, council members, and committee staff, thank you for providing the community with the opportunity to provide comments for the committee's consideration. As a key partner of DCPS and implementer of the Human Rights Learning Program in DCPS classrooms, American Friends Service Committee would like to provide testimony. Since 2009, AFSC, American Friends Service Committee, our Human Rights Learning Project has offered human rights education workshops to over 800 DCPS students. As a direct result of this engagement, youth participants have increased their leadership and advocacy skills and demonstrated a positive attitude towards mobilizing and community engagement. Our curriculum culminates in a capstone project where students are asked to identify human rights violations in their own community and design social action projects to address those violations. This year, students at Anacostia High School identified a number of issues with their school and or school system that they believe are in violation of their human rights. Students from Mrs. Brandy Bird's World History classes composed letters addressing these concerns, ranging from academic rigor to unsanitary facilities. I have provided copies of these letters along with my testimony. Today, I am here to ensure that the voices of these students are heard by the committee when considering the future of school reform in the district. The students had hoped to attend a committee meeting and share their input directly with you all. However, due to a myriad of reasons, such as childcare, extracurriculars, and work, many students are unable to attend meetings that are held after school hours. It's a hindrance to DCPS students' best interest that they are not provided more opportunities to provide input to this committee. Despite articulation that this committee prioritizes student testimony, the students at Anacostia High School were not extended an invitation to a public oversight roundtable held by this committee on May 10th. In closing, I will share aloud one of the letters included with this testimony. School reform in the District of Columbia cannot and will not be successful absent student participation. Therefore, please allow me to share the words of Mrs. Brandy Bird, 6B World History class. Good evening all. The following is a letter from Mrs. Brandy Bird, 6th period B day classes at Anacostia High School. This school year, we had the opportunity to work with interns from the American Friends Service Committee to understand the rights we have as human beings based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We would like to address multiple concerns such as the academic rigor of the school, the administrative execution of school rules, and the lack of facilities management. The rigor of the academic program offered here at Anacostia is lacking. We should have more courses offered. We need more options that interest us, such as other language courses, business classes, robotics, life skills, and college preparation. These courses should be offered here in our community, and we should not have to travel outside of the neighborhood to get a well-rounded education. We should also be allowed more funding to grant us opportunities for field trips and activities to engage us. In addition to the courses offerings being updated, we need technology that matches the fast pace of the world around us. The Wi-Fi in the building needs to match the speeds of learning in 2018. The school administration does not provide fair responses to student behavior. Some students are suspended while others are given free passes. Many times the administration is not responsive to the requests of students and often do not reply to matters that might cause immediate harm to students here at Anacostia. Student opinions should be taken into account when changes are made at a school. The administration doesn't communicate with the students and they are slow to respond. The school should be more organized and prepared to hold meetings for students. For example, in our last 10th grade town hall meeting, we had poor planning. Because of this, we were not able to congratulate students on their final term. The facilities at Anacostia High School are unsanitary and not up to standard. Anacostia needs professional exterminators to come in and fumigate the school. In the downstairs portion of the school, including the cafeteria, there are constantly rodents. Because there are so many rodents, we have even started naming them. It is unsanitary, nasty, and not conditions students should be exposed to. The bathrooms aren't clean and there are never napkins for students to dry their hands on. At least once a year, the pipes have busted and caused the water to stop flowing at school. It causes the school to smell bad and there is no running water during this time. Throughout the school, the water fountains are dirty and need to be replaced. There are no trash cans in the hallway and a lack of recycling throughout Anacostia, which adds to the poor facilities. As students, we are not necessarily sure what further steps should be taken, but we recognize the issues that are happening in our school. We hope this letter opens your eyes to what we as students encounter on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Chairman Grasso, members of the Education Committee. I'm Robin Chait, and I'm here as a current DCPS parent and former DCPS teacher. I have two children who've gone to DCPS since pre-kindergarten. One of them is in 7th grade, and the other is in 8th grade now at Alice Steele Middle School. And my 8th grader will be going to Woodrow Wilson High School next year. I also currently work at a local charter network, but I'm not here in that capacity. I'm here because I've witnessed DCPS make significant progress over the past couple of decades. And as we consider the future of education reform in the district, I ask that we build on what has worked. After the recent scandals around the school lottery and high school graduation, I know that many are calling for a higher level of oversight and transparency, which I certainly do support. However, some have called for an end to the combination of mayoral accountability and council oversight that I believe has been critical to the progress that we've seen in our public schools. While I believe the elected state board plays an important role in representing the voices of their constituents, increasing the power of the elected state board, I believe, would be a detriment to our progress. While DCPS, of course, still has room to grow, it can't compare to the dysfunctional system that I taught in 1998. So when I started teaching 20 years ago, I was part of the inaugural class of DC Teaching Fellows. I participated in summer training and I taught summer school. But the best professional development that I received was from my DC Teaching Fellows mentor teacher who observed me every day and gave me feedback several times a week. But once I started teaching and no longer had a mentor through the program, I didn't get the support I needed as a new teacher. The mentor that DCPS assigned me would show up unannounced every few months. She didn't meet with me before or after. She would just show up in my class and try to help me in the moments. Needless to say, it was not very helpful. My principal and assistant principal were helpful and supportive, but they didn't have time to provide much coaching. And there wasn't an instructional coach position as there is in most schools now. And we didn't have district-wide high-quality professional development specialized to new teachers. My best support network was my DC Teaching Fellows colleagues and the courses that we were able to take in the evenings after school. I imagine that many new teachers who didn't enter teaching through a program that came with support felt completely isolated. In DCPS in the late 90s, when the school district was overseen by the Board of Education, there was no coherent instructional framework or academic program. We didn't have a teaching and learning framework to provide a vision of what effective instruction should look like. I remember thinking that the standards in English language arts were so general that I felt like almost any lesson that I taught would meet any number. We did have textbooks, but we didn't have high quality resources to create lessons. And as a new teacher, I had to create my own daily lesson plans. There was also little accountability in the system. I had wonderful colleagues, but I also had colleagues who lost their motivation and they weren't doing very much anymore for students. If one of my colleagues had an issue with their pay or benefits, a visit to central office could take a half a day. I also had colleagues who weren't paid for periods of time. The facilities at both the school that I taught at and the school that my children attended were old and needed refurbishing. The worst problem was the heat in the summer. I remember my students taking the DC CAS one year in a boiling hot classroom. I'm not sure how we made it through late spring and early fall. Many facilities have been renovated since then, and the construction has gone really smoothly and quickly, producing beautiful new buildings with functioning heating and cooling systems. As a parent, I've also noticed positive changes in the schools as well. When our daughter started pre-K at Lafayette Elementary School, the principal shared that 50% of the students went to the feeder middle school after Lafayette, which was Alice Steele. The remaining 50% went to a private school or moved to the suburbs. By the time she graduated, about 90% of students were going on to Allison. There was a new perception in our neighborhood that DCPS was a good option. We've been happy with the education that our children have received and with the teachers that they've had. So in conclusion, I'm disappointed like you are by the recent graduation rate scandals. It's clear that many traditional high schools haven't made as much progress as DC's elementary schools, and that certainly should be an area of focus. But watering down or getting rid of the effective combination of mayoral accountability and council oversight will further dilute responsibility and leadership for education in the city, making no one ultimately accountable for the changes that need to be made.
Thank you. I really appreciate your personal experience. That tells a story that we don't hear very often, so I appreciate you being here for the time.
Thank you.
For testimony. And I think the testimony speaks for itself. So I hope my colleagues will take time to read it and really understand what you're saying. Ms. Pennington, I also appreciate the work of Bellwether Education Partners. I've read your study report. Keep doing it. I think that's really helpful. It's really important for us. Obviously, we get a lot of people trying to input their opinion. But when we take the actual surveys and the data that we get out of the schools and we try to understand them better, that's really helpful. So I appreciate you being here as well, engaging in that. And I just wanted to note, for the record, just quickly, Ms. Burks, I've heard the number of roundtables and hearings I've had over the past year, where students have been present and they've also been engaged. And in fact, we found that when we do them at 4 o'clock, it's more likely that students will come to the hearing rather than during the day when they should be and are in school. And so we do it after school for that reason. And in fact, in October every year, I do a youth engagement roundtable. So only youth are allowed to testify. You have to be under the age of 21, and we always get a big turnout there. We also had several hearings over the past several months on graduation accountability and made a very big point to make sure students are there. In fact, in December, the majority of those people that were testifying were students from schools. So I think that's really important. The May 10th hearing that you mentioned was not public witnesses. It was only government witnesses. So no public witnesses could testify. It was only for the government to get an update on what they're actually doing when it comes to graduation work. And in fact, they didn't do a very good job in that testimony. If you watched it, you'd know how frustrated I was. In addition to that, there are numerous opportunities for students and others to engage. You don't have to even just come to a hearing that's designated for you. We have performance hearings, we have budget hearings, we have regular roundtables in the summers for students to come out. And I hope that they do, and I certainly want them to come out and engage, because we learn a lot when students come out, and that's why I make a focus of the work that I do in this committee to make sure that they have a space to engage. And not only do they come to hearings, but I've gone out to them and I've engaged with them in the schools, but also in my office, which I think is really important. So I appreciate you bringing their letters today, and we'll review them closely. I am aware of a lot of the things that are happening in Anacostia, and I too am not pleased with them. And I think there needs to be major reforms there. There needs to be modernization there. There needs to be work done there. I wish I could get my colleagues to agree to that. It's very difficult for my colleagues, I think, to focus on the schools that are not the loudest schools, so to speak. So this year we put, something I couldn't stop, an additional $20 million in capital modernization to schools in Ward 6, another big chunk of money to schools in Ward 3. Now, ask yourself, where's the justice? There is none. And in fact, the reality is that we tried to put in a more objective approach to this that said that you had to do it based on need. Although that is being followed better than it has been in the past, it's not being followed closely enough. And that is frustrating for me, as it is for everyone else. So thank you all for your testimony.
If I can, just quickly, I will note that the hearing on May 10th was listed as a public meeting on the council website.
No, it is a public meeting. The public is permitted to follow it, to engage, but they were not permitted to testify. It was government witnesses only that were asked to testify. And then if you watch the hearing, you know that it was only government witnesses. So in any case, thank you all for this. Thank you.
Thank you, King David. Ms. Jess Giles, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, tonight.
We are now going to move on to the last hearing. We have Celeria Moore, Social Action Committee Chair, Washington, D.C. Alumni Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Hi. We also have Elliot Reed. Is Elliot Reed present? Mr. Reed. And Jason Andrea. Mr. Andrea. And Eric Bethel, Principal at Turner. Mr. Bethel, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you. Should I say Delta Sigma Theta first? Or ladies first? Or how about Ms. Moore, you just go ahead and order?
You just go ahead.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Councilmember Grosso and members of the District of Columbia Council's Committee on Education, thank you for taking time to hear testimony on the future of school reform in the District of Columbia. I am a resident of the District of Columbia and a retiree from the District of Columbia Public Schools, where I served as a manager and teacher in early childhood. Before transferring to DCPS, I served as an education specialist, diagnostic prescriptive in the Department of Behavioral Health's therapeutic nursery. At that time, it was a mental health commission, working with emotionally challenged children 2.5 to 6 years of age and their families. Asara Juanita Price, who continues to work in the field of mental health, stated, when we think about cancer, heart disease, or diabetes, we don't wait years to treat them. We start before stage 4. We begin with prevention, and when people are in the first stage of these diseases and have a persistent cough, high blood pressure, or high blood sugar, we try immediately to reverse these symptoms. This is what we should also be doing when people have serious mental illnesses. When children and adults first begin to experience symptoms such as loss of sleep, feeling tired for no reason, acting out, refusal to speak, feeling low, feeling anxious, hearing voices, etc., we should act. These early symptoms might not ever become serious. Like a cough, they often go away on their own and are nothing to fear. But When they do not go away, it typically takes 10 years from the time the first symptoms appear until someone gets a correct diagnosis and proper treatment. And this is from the Mental Health of America at B stage 4, stage 4. Based on information provided by the Department of Behavioral Health, only 1/3 of all schools in the District of Columbia currently have an assigned BH mental health professional. This shouldn't be status quo for an urban school system, for urban school systems in the 21st century. There is no excuse for DCPS or the District of Columbia public charter schools not to have clinically trained social workers and/or psychologists providing services for students enrolled in the district schools. The DC Public Schools has not experienced in-school shooting in the same way that has been observed in Connecticut and Florida. However, all ages of DCPS and DC Public Charter School students are exposed to gun violence and face other traumatic experiences that require behavioral health intervention. These factors threaten their mental health daily. Yes, children with IEPs, individualized education plans can have services available to them. The vast majority of students who need them do not have an IEP and needed support. However, the majority of those that do receive services do so long after the symptoms begin. 18 years ago, as a pre-kindergarten teacher working at the Capitol Hill Cluster's Peabody Early Childhood Campus, all children had bi-monthly whole group specials with the counselor. With parental consent, children who needed more specialized services or sessions were able to receive them at school. During case conferences when I worked for DBH, we discussed the need for a similar model throughout the public schools. To my knowledge, this service at Peabody no longer is provided. As we work together as a community towards school reform, the Washington, D.C. alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated recommends a comprehensive school mental health program for all students that includes what follows. If implemented, this model, inclusive of the community school concept, will help to create safe schools and healthy communities. 1. DCPS and DCPSC, Departments of Behavioral Health and community mental health agencies should coordinate the delivery of mental health services to all enrolled students, regardless of age and their families. This coordination would free up school social workers so that they will be able to provide specials, in quotes, to all students as described above. Provide clinical social workers or psychologists in schools who will be able to provide treatment to students who need it. Provide primary prevention services that reinforce positive behaviors and educate students about behaviors that threaten their mental health and assist their understanding regarding when and where to seek help. 2. The agencies mentioned above coordination would ensure intentional, continuous mental health education to all residents of the District of Columbia, with the public schools being the venue for this service. These preventive services would reinforce positive behaviors, educate regarding behaviors that threaten students or children and families' mental health, and assist their understanding when and where to seek assistance, with the schools being the first line of assistance and support. 3. Improve coordination of the above agencies to provide for individualized treatment regardless of the family's ability to pay, and would provide proper linkages with community agencies to involve entire family unit. Where, you ask, would the district find funding for this comprehensive school mental health program? Well, the agencies mentioned above could check into third-party payment, and the council could evaluate the actual need for the DCPS central office structure, i.e. senior deputy chiefs and offices with little or no direct impact on students in schools or those who don't have staff. In terms of the future of school reform in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated strongly recommends a comprehensive school mental health program that would be a major component of community schools. Again, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of 21st century school reform in the District of Columbia.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chairman Grasso and members of the Education Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm Jason Andrian. I'm a resident of Ward 1. I'm also the proud board chair of Achievement Prep Public Charter School. You're probably aware Achievement Prep was founded as part of the effort to close the achievement gap between low-income and affluent students in Washington, D.C. As a parent myself, I take seriously the fact that D.C. has a long way to go before we provide every student, regardless of race, class, or zip code, with the outstanding educational opportunities they deserve. In the face of persistent educational inequities, we have a responsibility not to slide backward into outdated systems that have been proven ineffective, but to move forward with bold educational reforms that work for all of our children. While we still have much work to do, our public education system has made enormous strides over the past 10 years. Prior to the establishment of mayoral accountability of schools, the old DC school board struggled with financial inefficiency and a lack of accountability, all of which had detrimental impact on our students. Under the board's jurisdiction, schools went without textbooks, basic supplies, copy machines, or on-time paychecks for their teachers. Instead of taking responsibility for these failures, board members of the old board pointed fingers at one another and failed in their duty to take action to improve the situation for our children. In recent years, I helped turn around the finances of the DC Boys and Girls Clubs and to shed light on the financial mismanagement of the DC Children and Youth Investment Trust. Because of these experiences, I have concerns, serious concerns, about our returning DC school governance to a system with a track record of financial mismanagement. The focus on addressing educational inequities and the need for greater resources for our students are far too urgent to return to these earlier practices. Students deserve excellent teachers in every classroom, beautiful school buildings to inspire and motivate them, and access to enriching out-of-school time programs. Under mayoral accountability, our public education leaders are held accountable for maintaining sound and equitable finances so that we can provide these crucial opportunities for our young people. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Council Beth. Make sure it's on our lights. Thank you.
Good evening, Councilmember Grosso. My name is Eric Bethel. I'm the principal at Turner Elementary School in Ward 8. This is my 4th year leading Turner and my 16th year as a DCPS educator. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about education reform this evening in the district and share my perspective on the progress we've made in the areas I consider urgent to prioritize moving forward. I want to be clear about my position on education reform efforts over the past 8 to 9 years. Without pause, even in light of significant challenges ahead, we have made and are continuing to make significant, measurable progress as a system on behalf of our students. I know this because I live it. I know this. My own professional growth is an example of that progress. My students at Turner who are growing academically by design are examples of that progress. When I started teaching DCPS prior to the system taking on bold reform efforts, I didn't have standards or curriculum to anchor the content I was teaching to. I didn't even have enough textbooks for all of my students. Moreover, I taught in an old building without classroom walls or doors. PE equipment was limited to sports balls and took place in an outdated gym. My principal was an amazing man, ran our building well, but was not an instructional leader. Therefore, I never received feedback that actually helped me better teach kids. Accountability by way of evaluation was so low that we joke about it in the lounge. I remember my frustrations vividly at the start of each school year when I noticed how many students on my new class rosters at the previous year in a known low performers class. This colleague was kind, well-intentioned, but struggled to classroom manage and to get students to learn. During this era, there was no good system to help him develop or hold him and the rest of us accountable to high standards of teaching and learning. In fact, there was no common standards that defined effective practice.
During this era, teaching felt like a job, not a profession. Pay was significantly lower than today. There was no clear career track for educators, and not surprisingly, schools like mine struggled to fully staff with talented and qualified educators. What we all remember most about that era was that our city's student achievement was amongst the very lowest in the nation, with no indications of an upward trajectory to come. Today, that landscape looks dramatically different. Today, teachers and school leaders have meaningful opportunities to grow instructionally, which, as we all know, is the important work behind the scenes that improves outcomes for students. Teachers at my school participate in 90 minutes of shared learning / professional development each week, rotating between academic content and pedagogy on week A and trauma-informed practices week B. Teachers receive low-stakes, informal feedback, weekly or bi-weekly, that's aligned to that shared learning. As of this morning, teachers at Turner received over 1,100 coaching touch points this year. This is not only true of Turner, this is DCPS's systemic approach to developing teachers across all schools in DCPS. These opportunities to grow are in addition to the formal evaluative feedback that teachers receive 3 times a year per impact. While we can absolutely continue to better implement impact, the fact that we have defined a common standard for effective instruction has dramatically increased the quality of teaching and learning happening across schools. I know this because I spent 2 years observing instruction across nearly every DCPS campus, elementary campus. Today, there is a clear career track that helps us attract, retain, and extend the reach of our students. My own career journey illustrates this. More and more students are learning in modernized buildings that curriculum resources they need to be ready for the 21st century. That same school I began my career in that did not have books or walls or PE equipment is in its first year in a newly modernized building and now offers swimming and bike riding as a PE class. Above all, based on valid and reliable measures proven by valid and reliable data, students in DC are growing at a rate we should be proud of. That said, we are so far from where we aspire to be. From my lens, equity is at the heart of what is next for education reform. Once we unpack the places where inequity exists, we'll uncover solutions to the challenges with the achievement gap, attendance, and the impacts of stress and trauma. In closing, while we face a new set of challenges that demand continued reform efforts, I caution us from moving forward without careful reflection and conversation about the reform policies and efforts that have led to the remarkable progress we've made. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all 3 of you being here. It's interesting to attend and hearing on. I appreciate Mr. Bethel, your experience for these number of years. Where did you teach?
Started at Marie.
Okay, all right, well, great. And so that was when there was no equipment and there was, so I mean, that's changed a lot.
Yes, big time.
Well, and I'm glad to hear that you've been at Turner now for 4 years, and you're seeing the improvements. Can you talk a little bit about what does that look like from you? You know, it doesn't, I think the big press and the public don't see it as readily as you do because they're only looking at one marker, they're only looking at one data point. And how do you see, where do you see improvement on things like, you know, family engagement or student engagement? They come into school more, are they performing at higher levels and engaging in the material differently? Where are your thoughts on this after 4 years?
So I've just had this conversation, and our students are putting on their first ever musical production on May 22nd. And to all of us in our school community, we see that as such a significant mile marker because it marks our journey in trying to bring joy, agency to the rigorous, structured set of instructional practices that we do. We want our students to love school. This is a mile marker in that. They're putting on this. We are assisting them. And that's how I can tell the progress.
And the parents are coming.
The parents are coming. The parents there, they don't miss a beat. Our parents are fully engaged.
Are all students in the musical? Are they all engaged?
Not all students are.
Somehow?
So yes, all of our students are engaged in musical in some sort of way. Either through set design, either through observing the performance and giving feedback. Even the younger students are learning the songs. So everyone's getting to touch it.
How many students in
When I started, we were at 329 students. Next year, we're projected at 462, and we have 491 students in seats right now.
Right now?
Yeah.
I think that's the story people need to hear, so I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I look forward to coming out to Turner and seeing
Thank
the
you.
school. It's not my staff, it's been a few years,
That's
so
all we love to have.
I think even before you were there, as a principal, so we could see you.
We'd love to see you.
I wanted to just note for Mr. Moore, the testimony you provided is spot on. It's something I truly believe in here in this city. It's why last year we did the school-based mental health task force, working with Department of Behavioral Health, working with the Department of Health, working with the school-based clinicians and all the social workers, as well as my colleague Vincent Gray from Ward 7. Together, we put together a plan that has now been invested in by the mayor, and so she's put $3 million towards expanding services this year in school-based mental health for exactly the reasons that you pointed out in your testimony. And I hope that you'll join me in monitoring this, trying to understand it so that next year we can put more money in, because I honestly believe that the issues that Mr. Principal Bethel has in his schools are not all about teachers. It's not all about what's happening in the classroom. It also has to do with students who are dealing with adverse experiences in the community, and how do we work with them. So I think you raised a point here that is not often raised enough, and I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you, Councilmember, and we just wanted to voice our support for that effort through this hearing.
Well, you've done it, and I appreciate that. I hope the public takes a minute to think about how much we've invested in the wraparound supports. You know, this is what it's about. I know at Achievement Prep, you can't do it unless you're working on each student's needs. Is that right? I mean, every day. When you do Boys and Girls Club work, because you're thinking about the students' needs outside the school at the same time as you're thinking about the needs in. If you want to talk about some of your more experience, I just think it's a beautiful testimony that you gave to us.
I think you hit it right on the head. The fact of the matter is that our children, in order for them to be able to learn while they're in school, we have to make sure we help to unpack the issues that they're experiencing outside of school. So that's part of the reason why I've dedicated my service to working with out-of-school time organizations to make sure that we are helping our kids be successful.
And you said you remember in mismanagement, you put it
I was in the throes of that.
Well, so are you tracking what we're doing now?
I am tracking it. I'm happy to see what's going on. I'm happy to see that if I remember correctly, the trust budget, I think was about $5 million or so. Most of that went towards grants, and now obviously the council is allocating $20 million to out-of-school time. So,
and the only reason we can do that is because we've reformed it and we've made more guardrails. We put more guardrails in and more accountability. There's
absolutely, which
lots
is necessary.
of on the commission now that are not on the commission. So we actually have a meeting later this week to talk about the strategic plan, to talk about next year's rollout of more programs. So it's great. Excellent. Thank you. Well, I can't thank you guys enough. I appreciate all three of you being here, and we'll close out this hearing with your testimony. So thank you. I just want to note, I think one of the things that we have to do as we move forward, but you guys can pack up, I'm just going to make a final statement, but one of the things that we have to keep in mind as we move forward is that the more kind of different things that we pile on to the schools as requirements for this or requirements for that, the harder it is for schools, I think, to do the work of teaching and to do the work of engaging meaningfully with parents and to do the work of supporting our teachers. And, the fact is that I think our government, we all think we have the answer to these things. And in fact, if we just get out and talk to the parents and the students, we'll recognize that the answers aren't that complicated. We just have to learn how to love one another more and engage and really believe in our students and believe in our parents. And like I've said the whole hearing, believe in our teachers and give them the supports they need to feel like this is a place where they want to learn, where they want to teach, where they want to be involved. Bringing in another outside entity to push that forward is not the right solution in my opinion. And, I will be offering an amendment next week in 2 weeks at the budget hearing to remove that dedication to the auditor's office of $500,000, and I will be redirecting those dollars to out of school time for enhancing those programs. And I just hope that I can get all the people that testified today and everyone else who understands that the real work has to be done on the ground with our students, with our parents, with our teachers, that we should speak up and let my colleagues know that this money is better spent on the ground, better spent in the classrooms, better spent in the after-school programs than it is another program at the auditor's office. So no disrespect to the auditor, I think she does good work. It's just I don't think she needs another task like this. And I think that instead we should be focusing our dollars where they really count, which is in the classrooms and the after-school programs and supporting our teachers. With that, thank you very much. It is 7:00 p.m. on the nose, and this hearing is adjourned.